Have you ever wondered why the moment you stop caring, he suddenly starts chasing? Why he pulls away when you give your all, but becomes obsessed when you go silent? This isn't a coincidence. It's not mind games. It's human psychology. And today, you're going to learn a secret most women never discover. Men are wired to crave detachment, not coldness, not manipulation, but a woman who knows she can walk away at any moment. Let's get one thing straight. Detachment is not about being distant or heartless. It's about power. It's about standing in your worth so deeply that you never beg, never chase, and never lower your standards to be chosen. The woman who knows how to emotionally detach without losing her softness becomes the ultimate high-value mystery. The kind of woman men can't stop thinking about. Men don't fall for the woman who needs them. They fall for the woman who doesn't need anyone, but chooses wisely. In this video, we're diving deep into why emotional detachment is your most powerful tool, not just to attract a man, but to maintain your self-respect, your peace, and your feminine edge. This isn't a game. This is emotional mastery. If you're tired of being taken for granted, tired of overgiving, tired of wondering why he changed, then this video is your wake-up call. Because once you master the art of detachment, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop settling, and suddenly, he's the one doing both. Let's begin. Detachment is misunderstood. Most people think it means you don't care, that you've shut down, that you've gone cold. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Real detachment is when your soul is finally at peace. When you no longer depend on another person's response to feel worthy, secure, or whole. And that shift, that invisible energetic shift, is exactly what men feel the moment it happens. There's a strange pull in detachment. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't chase, I attract. And if it's not for me, I release it. It's a mindset that turns you into a magnetic force of nature. You no longer react to every text, every delay, every breadcrumb of attention. And when a man feels that, when he senses that your world no longer revolves around him, something flips in his brain. Psychologists call it the intermittent reinforcement effect. It's what keeps people addicted. When you're always available, always replying, always giving, there's no mystery, no space for desire to build. But when you pull back, when you become a little less predictable, when your energy becomes something he has to earn again, the game changes. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've elevated. Men are drawn to challenge, to value, to what they can't immediately possess. Detachment triggers that primal instinct. It makes him ask, why isn't she reacting the way other women do? That question alone sparks obsession. He becomes invested not just in the idea of having you, but in understanding you. And here's the truth no one talks about. Neediness repels, but inner peace seduces. Not the peace that says I'm fine while crying yourself to sleep, but the peace that says I love deeply, but I'll never lose myself for love again. Detachment is the line between desperation and power. It's the soft boundary that says you can come close, but only if you respect the space I live in. And when a man feels that space, when he sees that your happiness doesn't hinge on him, he either rises to meet you, or he fades away. And both outcomes, they serve you. Because the man who is meant for you won't be threatened by your independence. He'll be inspired by it. He'll admire the strength in your silence, the elegance in your restraint, and the mystery in your calm. And the ones who vanish when you detach, they were only ever addicted to your availability, not your essence. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, over-text, or over-give, pause, breathe, recenter. Because the most powerful thing you can offer isn't your time, your attention, or your effort. It's your absence. Let him feel it. Let him wonder. Let him work for what he used to take for granted. And you stay still, steady, and sovereign. That's the psychological pull of detachment. And once you master it, you'll never have to chase again. Chasing feels like effort, it feels like commitment, it feels like love. But in reality, chasing is almost always born from lack, not connection. It's driven by fear. Fear of losing him, fear of not being enough, fear that if you stop showing up, stop trying so hard, he'll forget you, he'll replace you, he'll move on. But here's the cold, hard truth. Chasing doesn't bring a man closer, it pushes him away. When a woman chases, she inverts the dynamic of natural attraction. She steps into masculine energy, pursuing, convincing, proving. She tries to earn what should have been freely given. And that energy, as subtle as it may seem, repels more than it attracts. Because men aren't wired to be pulled in by pressure. They're drawn in by presence. Attraction is a dance, not a negotiation. When you chase, you stop dancing, you start begging. Think about it. When you're constantly reaching out, checking in, bending over backwards to accommodate him, you strip away the mystery. There's no curiosity, no tension, no question marks left unanswered. You become predictable, available, too easy to access, and human nature craves challenge, especially in love. It's not that you shouldn't express care or affection, but the second your actions are fueled by the fear of losing him, they stop being love and start becoming desperation. And men can smell desperation, even in silence. It's in the energy, in the way you overthink your texts, in how fast you reply, in the way your whole mood changes when he does or doesn't respond. You might think you're showing him your devotion, your loyalty, your worth, but in his mind, you're showing him that you're more invested than he is. And the second that balance tips, attraction dies. Why? Because value is tied to scarcity, not in a manipulative way, but in a psychological one. What we chase, we value. What chases us, we question. When you chase a man, you stop being the prize. You become the one trying to be chosen. And that is where attraction collapses. The moment he senses that you're willing to lose yourself to keep him, he subconsciously believes he's worth more than you, that he has the upper hand. And from that place, he stops valuing what's right in front of him. You weren't made to chase love. You were made to receive it, to reflect it, to respond to it, but never to run after it. The irony is this: the second you stop chasing, everything shifts. He begins to wonder. He begins to notice. He begins to feel the absence of your effort. And that space you used to fill with overgiving, it makes him realize what he's losing. So don't chase, observe, don't beg, detach, don't overextend, breathe. Your energy is your currency, and the one who sees your value will never make you spend it all just to keep his attention. Let attraction do its natural work. Be still, be sure, be the one who is chosen, not the one who pleads to be seen. There comes a moment in every connection when silence says more than any paragraph ever could. Not the silence of punishment, not passive-aggressive withdrawal, but the kind of silence that is anchored in self-worth, the kind that doesn't seek attention. It commands it, because when a woman who once gave everything suddenly says nothing, the shift is seismic, not because she's trying to manipulate, but because she's finally done performing. And that silence, that absence of energy, that space where words used to flow like water, it echoes in a man's mind louder than any argument, louder than the "we need to talk" conversations, louder than the tears he used to ignore. Most women believe that explaining more, saying more, proving more will fix the disconnection. That if they just communicate better, he'll understand, he'll change, he'll finally see her. But the truth is, words often give him comfort, not clarity. Your long messages, your emotional check-ins, your repeated reminders of your value, he doesn't interpret them as love. He sees them as availability, as predictability, as noise. But when you go quiet, not in anger but in clarity, he hears the truth for the first time. He feels the shift in your energy. He senses that something he once took for granted is no longer here. And that unspoken realization pierces deeper than anything you could have said with your voice. Because silence is where your power lives. Silence tells him you're no longer willing to fight for a one-sided connection. It tells him you're no longer available for confusion. It tells him you've stepped back into your center, not to punish, but to protect your peace. And here's where it gets interesting. Most men don't feel your worth while you're talking. They feel it when you stop, because words can be dismissed, argued with, ignored. But silence makes them sit with themselves. It forces reflection. It creates a mirror he can't avoid. He starts to wonder, why did she stop reaching out? Why did her energy pull away? Is she moving on, or worse, healing without me? That silence is the birthplace of regret, of realization, of awakening. And while he's busy rewinding the last conversations, rereading old texts, and trying to interpret your stillness, you've already made peace. You're not waiting. You're not strategizing. You're not hoping. You're simply being quiet, strong, whole. That's when he starts chasing ghosts, trying to recreate the feeling of your presence, trying to fill the void left by your silence. But he can't, because once a woman learns to communicate with her energy, instead of her words, she becomes untouchable, unshakable, irresistible. So don't be afraid to go quiet. Don't be afraid to pause instead of explain. Don't be afraid to sit in your silence, instead of fill the void with over-explaining, over-apologizing, or over-efforting. Because silence is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is not giving up. It's essential. It's the quiet exhale of a woman who's finally learned she never needed to say more. He just needed to listen better. Let your silence be your message. Let it create space. Let it be the sound of your boundaries, your self-respect, your healing. And let him feel what it's like to miss the woman who once gave him everything, until she realized she didn't have to anymore. That's when silence becomes your superpower. That's when it speaks louder than love. And most of all, that's when it finally speaks for you. Emotional unavailability has a reputation. It's seen as cold, as damaged, as distant. But here's a truth that few ever understand. Being emotionally unavailable can be a weapon of wisdom when used with intention, not as a wall, but as a filter. Not to shut people out, but to protect your peace. Because not everyone deserves access to the deepest parts of you. The most dangerous thing a woman can do is hand their emotional world to someone who hasn't earned it. And yet so many do. They give away their vulnerability too quickly. They open up their hearts like unlocked doors, hoping that love will walk in and stay. But in reality, what walks in, if unqualified, will only rearrange the furniture, make a mess, and leave when it gets inconvenient. That's where strategic emotional unavailability comes in. It's not about becoming robotic or heartless. It's about discernment. It's about pacing. It's about making sure a man proves his consistency before he's rewarded with your softness. Because when you give too much too soon, you kill curiosity. You drown mystery. You shortcut the emotional journey that actually builds value. And men, they're wired to pursue that value, to earn it, to wonder about it. When you're always emotionally open, always available, always explaining, always accessible, there's no challenge, no spark, no space for desire to grow. But when you're selectively unavailable, when you hold your emotions back just enough to maintain your standards, your energy becomes magnetic. You don't withhold love out of spite. You do it out of self-respect. It makes him wonder, what's going on in her world that I don't know? Why isn't she as emotionally invested as I expected? Is she protecting something? Or is she simply not that moved by me? That curiosity drives him wild. You don't have to yell, cry, or overshare to be unserved. You don't have to lay your heart bare every time you feel a connection. You just need to master the art of restraint, the power of pause, the ability to say, I'm still watching, I'm still learning you. I'm not handing over my soul until I know you can hold it gently. And that is where your power explodes. A woman who can detach emotionally while still being present physically is a rare force. She listens but doesn't overextend. She shares but never overshares. She feels deeply but she guards those feelings with wisdom, not fear. She has a strong heart, not a hard one. Men notice this immediately. It throws them off their game. They're used to validation, to emotional openness, to women who give their entire being in hopes of receiving crumbs of attention. But you disrupt that pattern. You don't play by their rules. You wait, you protect, you observe, and in doing so, you elevate. He starts to work harder. He starts to crave what you're not giving. And the irony, the less emotionally available you seem, the more emotionally invested he becomes. Because in his world, your silence, your slowness, your discernment, it all signals value, scarcity, mystery, power. So no, don't give everything away on the first emotional connection. Don't unlock your soul just because he shows up with good words and a charming face. Watch his effort, track his consistency, measure his depth, and until he proves himself worthy of your heart, be emotionally unavailable, not as a defense mechanism, but as a queen guarding her kingdom. Because when you give your emotions with intention, not impulse, you don't just attract love, you attract respect. And that's the foundation everything else should be built on. There's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who is not trying to impress. A woman who isn't begging to be chosen, who doesn't bend her worth to keep someone interested. She's calm, unshaken. She moves like she knows who she is. And that kind of woman, the one who holds her value in silence, is unforgettable. That's what detachment creates. Not distance, not coldness, but gravity. Detachment is the quiet confidence that says, I don't need you to validate me. I am already whole. And that kind of energy builds something most women unknowingly kill too soon. Respect and desire. You see, when you're too eager to show someone how much you care before they've shown you they're capable of honoring that care, you fall into the trap of emotional overexposure. You start managing their emotions instead of yours. You start performing for their affection instead of observing their consistency. But when you detach strategically, gracefully, you flip that script. You stop chasing and they start noticing. You stop proving and they start wondering. You stop overgiving and they start valuing. Because detachment is not about apathy. It's about self-respect. It's about knowing that real desire doesn't come from being constantly available, but from being unshakably grounded in your own identity. Desire is born in the unknown, in the tension, in the space between two people. And when you detach, you create that space. You remove the pressure. You break the pattern of always showing up first. You allow the other person to feel your absence, to reflect, to reach. And here's where it gets powerful. Respect always follows mystery. When you're not emotionally reactive, when you don't flinch at silence, when you don't over-respond to emotional breadcrumbs, you demonstrate something rare, emotional control. That level of maturity commands respect, because it shows that you're not moved by fear. You're not afraid to lose someone who isn't showing up fully. Men respect what they have to work for. They admire what doesn't chase them. They crave what doesn't immediately give in. So when you detach, you don't diminish the connection. You elevate. You challenge him to step into his role, to lead, to pursue. You make him question whether he ever truly had your heart or just your attention. And that question, that's where desire is born. Because desire grows in uncertainty, in the pause, in the spaces where effort must rise to meet energy. Detachment creates those spaces. It slows everything down. It removes neediness from the equation. It allows attraction to breathe. And in that breath, something sacred forms, respect rooted in longing. He begins to realize you were never competing for his love. You were waiting to see if he could meet you where you already stood, in power, in peace, in presence. So don't confuse detachment with disinterest. It's not about walking away, it's about standing still. It's not about punishing, it's about preserving. Preserving your time, your peace, your power. And when he feels that, truly feels that you're no longer emotionally investing in uncertainty, he starts to shift. He steps up, or he disappears. But either way, you win. Because you didn't chase. You didn't lower your standards. You simply detached and let the truth reveal itself. That's what real respect is made of. That's where real desire begins. Not in how much you give, but in how powerfully you can hold back until it's earned. High-value habits are the silent language of attraction. They're the unspoken signals you send every day that say, I am worthy, I am enough, and I expect to be treated accordingly. These habits aren't flashy or loud. They're subtle, consistent, and deeply magnetic. They create a presence that's hard to ignore, and even harder to walk away from. What makes a habit high value? It's not about perfection or grand gestures. It's about aligning your daily actions with your self-worth. It's about cultivating a lifestyle where your peace, your confidence, and your happiness come first. Not as an afterthought, but as a foundation. First, there's emotional self-care. This means you don't wait for someone else to validate your feelings or fix your mood. Instead, you manage your emotions like a queen managing her kingdom, with grace and authority. You know how to reset after a bad day, how to protect your energy from negativity, and how to nurture your spirit with practices that keep you grounded. Whether that's journaling, meditation, or simply taking quiet moments for yourself. When you show emotional resilience, he notices, he respects that you're not a damsel waiting to be rescued, but a woman who stands tall, no matter the storm. Next, high-value habits include boundaries that are non-negotiable. Saying no when something doesn't serve you, not settling for less than you deserve, and refusing to tolerate disrespect are all habits that build an invisible fortress around your worth. When you hold firm to your boundaries, you create safety for yourself, and that safety radiates outward. He feels it. He knows crossing those lines will mean losing you, and that knowledge keeps him invested. Another vital habit is cultivating your passions and interests outside of the relationship. Being a woman with a life that excites her, whether it's a hobby, career, or creative pursuit, makes you magnetic. It shows you're not dependent on someone else to fulfill you. You bring fullness into the relationship, not emptiness. This independent energy is irresistibly attractive because it challenges him to match your level of dedication, not to be your sole source of happiness. Physical self-care is also a high-value habit, but it's more than just appearances. It's about honoring your body as the vessel of your power. This means consistent routines that make you feel strong, healthy, and vibrant. It could be exercise, nutrition, or rest, but whatever it is, it reflects your commitment to yourself. When you invest in yourself physically, you send a message that you value what you bring to the table, and that's deeply compelling. Communication is another habit that keeps him hooked. But it's not about talking non-stop or oversharing. It's about speaking your truth clearly, calmly, and with confidence. It's about listening actively and showing that you value mutual respect in conversation. When your words carry authenticity and boundaries, you become unforgettable in his mind. You're not just another voice, you're the voice he wants to hear. Consistency is the thread that ties all these habits together. It's not about being perfect every day, but about showing up as your best self regularly. This reliability creates trust, the cornerstone of attraction. When he knows you're steady, grounded, and true to yourself, he feels safe to invest emotionally. Ultimately, these high-value habits create a cycle of positive energy that keeps him coming back. They build respect, ignite desire, and deepen connection without the need for manipulation or chasing. You don't have to beg for attention or validation. Your habits do the work for you. They broadcast your worth and make you unforgettable. The truth is, attraction isn't about grand romantic gestures or endless compromises. It's about the quiet power of a woman who loves herself enough to build habits that honor her value every single day. And that kind of power, it keeps him hooked. Not just in the moment, but for the long haul. Detachment isn't about shutting down or giving up. It's about rising above the chaos of emotional neediness and stepping into your power with clarity and confidence. When you detach, you don't lose anything, you gain everything. You gain respect, self-worth, and a magnetic energy that pulls the right people toward you effortlessly. To detach is to elevate. It's refusing to settle for less than you deserve, and recognizing that your peace is the ultimate prize. When you stop chasing and start holding your boundaries firmly, you create space for real connection, one built on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine desire. That space becomes fertile ground where love can grow naturally, without pressure or desperation. Attraction